Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Are you ready for Jim Fresh Sean to do a video on how to identify dying collecting categories in the antiques and collectibles trade? If so, congratulations, you read the title and possibly the description of this particular video, and you're here to watch. For the rest of you, I have no idea why you're here, because the title and description of this video states very clearly that we are going to be talking about the characteristics that go into identifying collecting categories that are unfortunately dying a slow or quick death in the year 2021. And this is a list that I created to help you guys recognize these type of collecting categories, so you know that if you are getting involved in them from a financial perspective over the long term, there is a chance that you are making a very bad decision. Now, to be fair to my critics, if you have an emotional attachment to some of these items, even if they're dying, now's a good time to buy, because really, in all honesty, the markets tend to trend downward when a lack of activity occurs in these markets that cause them to die out. So we're going to go through my top 10 characteristics. I'm going to go into detail on each one of these particular characteristics. Don't worry if you can't read what's written up here. I'm going to go through each one of these in depth. Trust me. So we're going to start off with the first characteristic of a dying collecting category. You must understand that if the population that collects that particular collecting category, in most cases, is aging, or people that are collecting that category are of an older age and dying off, the demographics are therefore unfavorable. So if you are looking at certain markets that lack a historic sheen to them, mainly Lionel trains, Hot Wheels cars, even if we look at certain cast iron antiques, collectibles, mechanical cast iron banks, items of that nature, Pez dispensers would fall into this. Vintage machine-made marbles would fall under this. The demographics for those collecting categories are not good. As a result, if you're trying to invest in that market, you're going to hit an uphill battle, because most 20, 30-year-olds are not collecting vintage machine-made marbles, or vintage Pez dispensers, or vintage Barbie dolls, or vintage Hot Wheels. So you need to understand demographics if you want to be a successful investor and speculator in these markets. Now, on the flip side, this is where all the Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, and video game collectors scream for joy, because the demographics for those markets look extremely well. However, that is only one piece of the puzzle. You also need to understand that as a result of the younger collectors operating in that market, and the fact that a lot of those markets, when we look at Magic the Gathering, when we look at Pokemon, at best they're 20, 25, almost 30 years of age. Those markets are extremely speculative. That's why video game collectors, when you log on to Heritage right now and you see a copy of Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo selling for over $300,000 simply because it's graded and encased by WATA, or a copy of Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64 that's factory sealed and graded by WATA selling for $1.5 million, you can't get too excited, because the market is in a speculative euphoria, number one, and it's too new to properly assess the demographics. This is something that you need to understand. Now, the next characteristic that you want to look for if you are identifying a dying collecting category is lack of catalysts in the collecting category overall. Now, I understand a lot of you watching this video, you're very new to this channel. So I have to go back and I have to define what a catalyst is and give you all an example. If you look at what's happening in comic books right now, comic books right now are in their peak years. They are selling for extremely high prices in the year 2021. Don't believe me? Go look up a copy of Action Comics 1, then go look up a copy of Giant Size X-Men 1, CGC 9.4, and do a price history of that book. Literally, if you would have bought that book, Giant Size X-Men 1 and CGC 9.4, literally a year ago from today, you would have paid almost 50% less than what it is selling for right now. That market is on fire. Well, in the year 2000, CGC, Comics Guaranteed Corporation, for all you newbies out there, came on the scene and started grading and encapsulating comic books. And as a result, that acted as a catalyst that brought more speculators and investors in that market. With graded video games, Wada Games was a catalyst. It was a manipulated catalyst, but it was still a catalyst that caused collectors, speculators, and investors to get involved in that market. Another catalyst that caused comic books to rise to all-time highs was the acquisition of Marvel Comics by Disney Corporation. And Disney took those characters and they started transferring them to the silver screen, to television screens, everywhere. And as a result, comic book characters are in the public consciousness. This is all contributing to high prices right now. Another catalyst that occurred, I'm going to give another example here, was in coin collecting, believe it or not. In 1999, in the United States, the U.S. Mint decided to do something to get younger collectors into the market. Do you guys know what they did? They released the 1999 State Quarter Program, where every state in the United States, for those of you watching this overseas, that is 50 U.S. states, a unique quarter design was released into the market over the next subsequent years. Believe it or not, this acted as a catalyst to pull young collectors into coin collecting. That's why in the year 2021, certain coin prices are trending upwards. All those collectors now have disposable income. They're logging on the Stacks and Bowers, Heritage, other auction sites, and they're bidding up graded coins. Another catalyst that occurred in coin collecting happened in the year 2006 with the advent of CAC, Certified Acceptance Corporation. John Albanese created a grading company to keep the grading companies in check. Meaning, if you are a coin collector and you want to know if your coin is quality for the grade assigned by either NGC or PCGS, you can send it to CAC and they will look at it, and if they agree on the grade on the holder, they will assess it and sticker it appropriately. That is a catalyst that occurred in that market. If there is a lack of catalysts in any collecting category, that market may, not always, this is more of a minor sign, but it may be a dying collectible category. You want proof? Name a catalyst that occurred in the Lionel train collecting market. Name a catalyst that is occurring in the Pez dispenser market. Hell, name a catalyst that is occurring right now in the Barbie or Hot Wheels collecting realm. You can't, because that is a sign of a dying collecting category. Number 3, this is obvious, dealers begin to disappear. How many Barbie dealers do you know in the year 2021? How many Pez dealers? How many cast iron antique dealers do you know? Now, to be fair, yes, there are certain cast iron antiques made of cast iron, that are still selling for significant sums. The top 1 to 3% of that market is on fire. But overall, that market is not showing much growth overall in the year 2021. And if you were to find an antique dealer that specializes solely in cast iron antiques in the year 2021, that would be extremely rare. As a result, most dealers are not trying to deal in items that are dying in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. Now let's go to number 4. And this I really have to talk about a little bit. I know there are people that watch this channel and they say, you know what, Sean, I just got a bad taste in my mouth. Everything that you do on this channel is about investment in a lot of these items. And I turn on other YouTube channels, I turn on auction houses, and it's all about the Benjamins, baby. I just have a passion for these items. Why does it always have to be about investment? Well, unfortunately, in the year 2021, it is all about the Benjamins. We see this online, we see this on collecting forums. The amount of money flowing into the antiques and collectibles trade right now in history has never been greater. There is more money flowing in the antiques and collectibles trade in the year 2021 than any other time in history. And that is undisputable. And I don't care what market you want to look at. You look at high-end art, you look at coins, you look at edged weapons, you look at comic books, you look at video games, you look at Pokemon, you look at Magic the Gathering. There is a ton of money flowing into these markets. Make no mistake, if there is a lack of investment interest in the collecting category that you love, cherish, and collect, it could be because the market is dying. How many people in the year 2021 are paying record prices for Pez dispensers, or Hot Wheels cars, or Lionel trains, or even certain Elvis memorabilia? Now, I know some smartass in the comment section is going to name an item that Elvis owned specifically that sold for a record price. Again, I'm not talking right now about the top 1 to 3% of the market. I'm talking about the average collectible out there that most collectors can afford and go after in these markets. If there is a lack of overall investment interest, that market is dying. Now, this brings us to number 5. Auction companies lose interest in promoting the collectible or the collecting category at large. Auction companies are in the business to generate hype, which leads to sales, which leads to happy consigners. There is a fiduciary financial responsibility between an auction company and a consigner. As a result, if you log on to Heritage, if you log on to Certified Link, if you log on to Morphy's auction, they have a vested interest in the promoting items that sell for record sums. So as a result, going back to point 4, if there is a lack of investment interest in the collecting category, that means it's dying. It's no different with auction companies. Auction companies are in the game to make money, guys. Which brings us to number 6. If there are massive and prolonged price declines in the low and mid tiers of any collecting category that start to spread to the higher end tier of that market, meaning over time, low end, mid tier items start to fall in value, and eventually what's going to happen is the top tier of that market is going to start to fall in value. That is the sign of a dying collecting category. Learn from this. Between the years 1995 and 2005, I made a ton of money in the pre-video game, pre-Nintendo era video game market. And how I knew that market was going to die out, because all I had to do was watch for this to occur. When this market started to hit a decline in the lower and mid-tier items, I knew eventually the market would die out. I knew it was speculative from day one. Now, you have to be careful with markets like this, because right now, if you look at Magic the Gathering, if you look at Pokemon, even if you look at vintage video games, yeah, there's certain items on the low to mid end that do tend to fluctuate, but overall, if you look at an Alpha Black Lotus, if you look at a holofoil Charizard card, if you look at some of the obscene factory seal Nintendo games that are selling for all-time prices right now, the top tier of the market is still going strong. So if you're analyzing this from the perspective of a truly speculative, non-established market, you just have to take that in mind, because usually what's happening in that situation is that the lower to mid end is going through a capitulation period, where the high end is soaring to new heights as a result of mass speculation. That doesn't mean the market is dying. That means the market is accelerating, and that's not necessarily good to those of you that collect in those particular categories, which leads us to characteristic number 7. Lack of interest from market manipulators and the overall trade. Even publications like Antique Trader, the publication that I write for, Antiques and Auction News, the Journal of Antiques and Collectibles, when a lot of these publications stop commenting on some of these collecting categories, that can be a death nail in the coffin for some of these markets. If it bleeds, it leads. I am a columnist in the overall antiques and collectibles trade. I'm guilty of this. I don't talk too much about Hot Wheels or Barbie dolls in the columns that I write, because it's really not that exciting for my younger viewers, or my younger readers, I should say, that want to listen to me talk about graded video games, Pokemon cards, or even rare coins or high-end pieces of art. It just doesn't fit. So you have to understand, once a lack of interest from market manipulators and the overall trade becomes the norm, that market may be dying a slow death. Again, guys, it's all about the Benjamins. I don't care whether you agree with that. I don't care if you hate it. That's where we are in the year 2021. Which brings me to number 8. Lower valued items become abundant and routinely fail to sell. Now, this is very important. During the speculative bubble of pre-Nintendo video game systems, your Atari 2600s, your ColecoVisions, your Intellivisions, that occurred from 1995 to 2005, this is what was happening in the marketplace. You would go to a garage sale, you'd go to a flea market, you would go to an antique mart, and what used to sell pretty quickly, where if somebody had a box of common Atari 2600 games and they wanted $2 or $3 a game, people would come in and they would snuff that out early in the morning. Well, when that market started to die, all those low-valued items became very abundant and routinely available, and they failed to sell. You would now see Atari games sitting there at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and no one wanted them. Either the dealer had to take them back home, or he had to cut the price significantly and sell it as a lot. Meaning, hey, here's a box full of 30 Atari 2600 games. You can have the whole box for $10. Just give me $10 so I don't have to lug it home. That's a sign of a possible dying collecting market. Which brings us to number 9. Items become hoarded or disappear from the market because sellers don't want to sell due to price declines. If any of you out there watch Rudy with Alpha Investments, he does mention this in some of his videos. He says if the price of a lot of these reserve list cards would fall exponentially, he would buy them from the market and he would not sell them. He would just store them and keep them away from the market. That does happen in markets that die out. You have a hoarding situation going on for some of the dealers, some of the collectors, some of the speculators in that market that think, you know what, I'm not going to take the loss. If I go and sell this item at a loss, it's going to be very painful to me. So I will hold on to these items and see what happens. That is the sign of a dying collecting market. That is occurring a lot right now with Pez dispensers, certain collectible toy trains, even Barbie, Hot Wheels, vintage contemporary marbles. A lot of that stuff is being hoarded because a lot of people do not want to realize the pain of a loss. Which brings us to the last point I want to make, and I am trying to finish this video in 20 minutes. I'm doing very good thus far. Collectors overtake investors and speculators. And this goes back to the point I made when I said lack of invested interest in the collectible. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that it's all about the Benjamins, baby, in the year 2021. Well, I can tell you, once a market starts to die, there is a lack of investment, which means the market rightfully returns to collectors. Investors and speculators don't want any part of it at that particular point. And what happens is the market returns to being just a market for people that love the objects they collect. I hope you got something out of this video. I am going to expand on this in later videos. So I know I went very quickly through this. I just wanted to do a quick 20-minute video, 20-minute long video to show you guys the top 10 characteristics to help identify a dying collecting category. And full disclosure, this was the video I was producing where my camera died 3 times during the filming of it. I then went to upload it and realized the video did not take, and I ended up deleting it. So unfortunately, I had to record it again. So I'm hoping this video will be uploaded to YouTube and nothing goes awry, so I don't have to record this video again and again, much like Lamb Chops Play Along, where this is the video that never ends because I keep having to film it. Thanks for watching. Let me know your feedback in the comment section below, and have a great night.